left behind, but of course that we can tell you that there was a lot of anxiousness, that and the fact that a lot of people couldn't communicate with loved ones, couldn't get a hold of the people that they may have left behind, or couldn't get in contact when they went to the shelter. So, you know, it was police officers, deputies were trying to keep things as organized as possible, but of course with a situation like this, I'm sure you can't help all of these feelings, all of these things going on. Of course, the cleanup here is just beginning. We were in Cape Coral last night, the Fort Myers area. Today they'll be getting a better look. Right now, the word we're getting from the Lee County property appraisers that the damage could exceed $3 billion in Lee County alone. Again, that's without even going into the hardest hit areas or really assessing the damage. They'll be doing that today and getting a better number on that. The damage ranges from downed trees, snapped power lines, street lights were out, stop signs were out, so police officers were out until probably the sun came up this morning, directing traffic in some areas because it was really difficult getting around, and we can tell you that as we were trying to find a place to stay late last night. So of course we're expecting to see much of the same today because the damage is so overwhelming. We can't imagine that this is going to be cleaned up in a day or two. So of course we'll be keeping tabs on that and bringing you the very latest.
You know, Yusila, one of our jobs as reporters, obviously, is to tell the story and to be as unbiased as possible. But when we experience stories like these, it is just very difficult not to be affected. And I'm sure that you're experiencing this since you're there live and you're seeing not only the actual property and tree damage, but just the looks on people's faces.
Yeah, I mean, although a lot of people we talked to kept saying the same thing, well, you know, thank goodness that we're okay, and of course hearing the devastation in Punta Gorda really puts things in perspective. But of course, it's like you said, you've got your possessions, your pictures, memories that you lose when natural disasters like this it's not easy. So, I mean, although people were trying to stay optimistic because they knew that the news was grim coming from Punta Gorda, it's still a feeling of helplessness because many of them, either if they rode out the storm at home, could only sit and watch as these winds came through and just peeled roofs right off. So it was quite a sight for them to see, and you can tell the looks on their faces last night. They were still in shock. They weren't even too consumed with the damage, just trying to pretty much get over the fact that they were slammed with such a vicious hurricane. Really not something that many of them were expecting.
Yusila, we know that electricity is out in that area. Any word on when electricity will be restored?
No, we're hearing, at least at the hotel where we're staying, they've been told that perhaps a week. We've heard anything between that, well, to the end of the week, so tomorrow. But of course, crews are working. They're working their way into this area. We saw that last night as they moved in. There's really no word when they'll be restored at this point. We're still trying to figure out exactly how many people are in the dark. So while all these crews are scrambling to get power back on, phone services back on, I mean, there's a lot for them to deal with, especially in those areas where they're not going to be able to get into because you've got down trees or down power lines. Of course, these are not exactly safe situations for these crews to get into. So they've got to wait for the cleanup crew to come in, and then they'll move in and restore power. So it's that we can't really put a finger on when all the power is going to be restored.
Thank you very much, Yusila. Yusila Ramirez, live in Fort Myers.
One of the things our weather department was talking about, Bob specifically, is that when you are under a hurricane warning, and whether or not you think that it's going to veer your way or veer another way, you always have to be prepared just in case. And Bob Soper is standing by live, and I think that was a great and very important point to make, Bob.
Well, I think it's going to be very important. Unfortunately, the problem happened over there, but for our viewers, this is something you got to think about. We have a tropical depression out there that shows signs of possibly coming into South Florida. It's very close. It's in the middle of the Atlantic, but it's moving toward the Windward Islands, which are the Lesser Antilles. We're going to talk about that more in a minute. But as that gets nearer, we could go under hurricane warning. Now, warning means you have 24 hours to get everything wrapped up, get evacuated, make sure your shutters are secure, and get inside your house and begin to wait it out. You can't wait. If you're going to evacuate, you cannot wait until the storm comes and say, oh my God, I didn't think it was going to be this bad. Then it's way too late to get out, and you may lose your life. So heed the hurricane warning. And I know that we try to pinpoint some place or another, but there's always that error in the possible track. So in this case, that error in the track took it a little bit to the right. It wasn't much, took it just a little bit to the right, and that meant instead of Tampa Bay, it moved into Port Charlotte. All of that area under hurricane warning for more than 24 hours. So, people have to heed and do what is necessary to save their lives and their property. All right, here we go. On real-time radar, just the back end, a little bit of banding here, just a little bit. It's nothing serious, just some rain, additional moisture around, especially around Lake Okeechobee and north of Tampa and around Fort Myers. Going a little bit closer, show you what's been happening in South Florida. Now, most of these have died down, but I just want to show you the showers over time that have been moving through Fort Lauderdale and on up I-95 and the Turnpike, and now have just about dissipated. Looking at the past 12 hours on radar satellite, there comes Charley, Hurricane Charley, bearing down on the Carolina coastline. The eye right about there currently, and slamming the waves into the beaches. 6 to 8 foot storm surges, 3 to 6 inches of rainfall wherever it makes landfall, which is probably going to be somewhere around the Carolinas coast. 32.3, this is the 8 a.m. advisory, 32.3 north, 79.7 west, 85 mile per hour winds. Now is moving even faster toward the north-northeast at 28 miles per hour. It's just 35 miles south-southeast of Charleston, South Carolina. Now, here's what we think is going to happen in the near term over the rest of today and tonight. Somewhere landfall around the middle Atlantic coastal states of North and South Carolina, more like, I guess, the southern part of the middle Atlantic. And then the morning on Sunday up around the rest of the mid-Atlantic and into the northeast on Sunday, into Canada on Monday, moving on out. And so as far as warnings are concerned and watches all the way up the coast, we go down to the Georgia coastline, stretching up to Cape Hatteras and northward to the Virginia line. We've got a hurricane warning in effect. Just north of there, it is a tropical storm warning because this may weaken as it moves up there, but that's all the way into Chesapeake Bay and the Potomac. And moving farther to the north, a tropical storm watch in effect up to New York State. So almost the entire eastern seaboard under some kind of warning or watch. And here's what's picking up this storm and starting to move it very, very rapidly. We got this dip in the jet stream, those upper level winds, the railroad track on which the systems move, and it's picked up speed now, north-northeast at 28 miles per hour, and we think it's going to move even faster over the next 6 to 8 hours, so it's likely to make landfall around midday today along that North or South Carolina area. Now out into the Atlantic. Here are the Windward and Leeward Islands, the Lesser Antilles, right there. Tropical Depression 5, likely to become Earl later today. We got to keep a close eye on this because it appears to be heading more or less on a line into the northern Caribbean, and then who knows whether it will move up here, but we're going to keep a close eye on that. And way out by the Cape Verde Islands, we've got Danielle. We're going to find out more particulars on both of those systems when Pamela Wright comes back in just a few minutes. All right, back to you.
Thank you, Bob. Time now is 8:17 as we continue to track Hurricane Charley and its aftermath on this special edition of CBS 4 News. We'll be right back.
I'm Jeff Katz. 30 years ago, I founded Dolphin Carpet